Margie will give you 30 seconds warning. She needs 30 seconds.
30 seconds?
30 seconds.
I'm good whenever.
You're good with that?
Yep.
Okay, Mary Jane.
Okay, call the meeting to order. Please stand and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing. Good evening, everybody. I need approval of the minutes for August 26, 2020.
Move it. Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Minutes approved. I need a motion to approve the financial reports from Treasury.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against it? Any abstentions? Okay. Financial be filed for audit. Items for information. Dr. Harrington, update report on opening of schools.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Mulhern. I will be very excited in a few short minutes to talk about how I believe the beginning of the year began for all of us. Very proud, very excited, but perhaps the most exciting thing that we were briefed with the opening of this school year was some very, very special news, a true honor to the Oceanside School District. And that was that our own Jen Wolf, who is a social studies teacher here at OHS, was named the 2021, and that as in calendar year 2021, New York State Teacher of the Year. Huge honor for her, huge honor for our district, for Nassau County, and for our state. Jen will be representing us and doing a number of things over the course of her year, which begins officially in January, to really talk and be a champion and a real role model for our profession. But what I'm going to do is share with you and with the board, if I may, a very brief video that was done by NICET on her behalf, and then give Jen an opportunity to...
I've been teaching those.
Oh, here's the video.
I've been teaching at Oceanside this is the beginning of my 24th year. What I love about it is I have always had supportive administrators who have realized that the way to a teacher's heart without they've always been very supportive, and I haven't always been easy.
Jen is just filled with passion, enthusiasm.
I know it's early, but I think it is this.
Her degree of commitment to this profession is unparalleled. She has really helped grow the profession. She's helped young teachers understand that teaching is hard work, that it is an intellectual activity, that it takes a degree of commitment that she displays single-handedly, and they are able to look at her as a role model. I'm very proud that she actually wears that hat because it will help so many teachers for years to come and ultimately will impact so many students.
As a colleague, I would describe her as a mentor. I wouldn't be where I am in my career without Jen Wolf. Jen is the reason why I pursued National Board and ultimately achieved National Board certification. She's as good of a friend and a person as she is a teacher. She's a National Board certified human being too.
Jen is someone that's not afraid to have both the difficult conversations, but the conversations that will connect learning to students' lives.
I mean, we've been out of school 6 months, right? It's a long time. You can't constantly recycle old lesson plans when you deal with kids who demand that you make learning relevant. Kids today, they want to know that you see them for who they are and that you understand what they need.
If you have a problem or need anything, Ms. Wolf was definitely always there to help. And then it could have been something at school, but she was also there to help it, even if it wasn't necessarily academically related.
She's such an effective teacher because she treats us like our opinions and our ideas are just as valid as hers might be.
She cares about us. She's really invested in every student.
Because I don't always think that teachers realize their own power. When teachers are put in positions of leadership to control their profession, the education that students receive is usually more effective. I could not be more proud of my profession and how it responded to the COVID pandemic. We were able to, on a dime, do the best we could for kids. And I think there was lots of successes in the spring because of our teachers' ability to problem solve. There's still, I don't know, things to be learned, stuff that I can do with my students, things we can do despite the obstacles. I have to believe that, otherwise the joy of the job is gone. But we're gonna make it work, because that's what teachers do. We make, stuff work. We're gonna do that. Change brings opportunity.
On Monday, this was announced at the Board of Regents meeting, which of course was virtual, but it was still very, very special for all of us.
Audrey, you want me here? Up there? You want me up there?
Wherever you want to be.
I'd rather be at home. It'll work. Is it okay if I take my mask off?
Sure.
Dr. Harrington asked me to share some of the remarks that I made on Monday with the Board of Regents, but that I hadn't seen the video, so now I'm a little bit fun. Okay, first I have to thank Dr. Harrington. I know, for nominating me. I know it wasn't an easy job. I also know that she didn't nominate me because I always do what she says. I work with an amazing and talented and dedicated company of professionals here at Oceanside. I know making a choice must have been difficult, and I know that because I believe that I'm an accomplished teacher because I collaborate with bright minds and dedicated folks who push me and support me. A big thank you to my parents. I grew up in a tiny general store in a tiny upstate hamlet, learning how to match things by helping my mom put items neatly on the shelf. Mom and Dad taught me the meaning and power of an education. I now pass that same message to my students. And I must thank my husband Josh, also a teacher, and my girls Phoenix and Athena, who are all home, hopefully doing their homework, for putting up with me, tolerating my absences and being there when I needed a hug or a glass of wine. Josh took care of that. I love you and couldn't do this job this well without you. Lastly, I was nominated among 4 of the finest accomplished teachers in New York State. I'm proud and honored that I virtually stand next to such hardworking, creative teacher leaders. I hope your districts know how lucky they are to have you. You are a blessing to your communities. I hope you know that. So what's my story?
I was told I should give you a little story about me and then compare it to today's back-to-school situation and then bring it back to my story. I know that's sound advice, I know that's good speech writing, but after volunteering all summer alongside teachers and district administrators on reentry committees, setting up my classroom in rows with desks 6 feet apart, facing forward, and answering email after email from scared and worried students made me think I cannot follow my friend's advice, not this time. The story I want to talk about has not been written. It is the story of over 210,000 teachers in the state of New York returning to school this month in the midst of a pandemic. It is a creation story, really, about dedicated professionals who are beginning to put together an education for New York students that has never been done before. Every time I read the speech, I should have tissues, right? I'm glad to practice in front of you. Okay, luckily teachers are flexible enough, skilled enough, and powerful enough to go back to what we love doing, mask, hand sanitizer, and face shield in hand, making the best of it for our students. But it will not be like any other year. No matter how long any of us have taught, this is, in effect, our first year of teaching. I am beginning my 24th year of teaching, and frankly, I'm feeling overwhelmed by the steep learning curve. Traditional public school teachers have never had to teach virtually before this spring, or teach both in person and virtually at the same time, or worry about that extra 10 pounds that the camera adds. Audrey is always famous for saying, "Does this lesson make my butt look big?" We are in new territory. This year will be challenging for everyone, parents, students, teachers, administrators, and community members. There's no getting around it. So how can districts address these new challenges and best match the ongoing and ever-developing needs in education of children and teachers and parents and community members? By asking teachers to sit alongside the decision makers to guide our schools together. It is my hope that the Board of Regents, the State Education Department, and school districts around New York will reach out to teachers in the state and in their buildings to co-design teacher leadership positions that are formal, funded, and hold real influence. These teacher leaders who are experts in what they do will sit alongside our decision makers to guide our schools together. Everyday classroom teachers work closely with families and students, navigating the challenges of these uncharted waters. They should be given meaningful and important formal roles. These experts will help right the ship. My region is no stranger to difficult circumstances and events that put teachers in the middle of traumatic events. Directly impacted by the tragedy of 9/11, Long Island teachers comforted and cried with their students. In 2012, Superstorm Sandy flooded our metro area. Teachers from Staten Island to Oceanside to Long Beach to Lindenhurst delivered meals, cleaned out homes, checked on students and families, even though, like my family, their own homes were destroyed. Take one look at the moms' pages on social media during this pandemic, and you will see teachers and education front and center. Our kids need to be in school, many have written. It is actually affirming to me the amount of passion I see from families demanding a return to normal schooling. I see acknowledgement that our profession is needed and critical to the social and emotional as well as the academic well-being of our state and nation's families. Families are healthier and happier when schools and teachers are there to support them, to help them get back to work and make families whole. In my view, teachers and schools are heroes too in the time of COVID. Many of the teachers I speak with headed into the year with much anxiety and fear. We are worried about our own health, the health of our families and our students. But we show up because our students need us, our families need us. I hope folks do not take that lightly. Many teachers are in the same boat as our first responders. We will have to forgo seeing our elderly loved ones for a year or sacrifice not seeing a new grandchild. We do this because we love other people's children, because we need to step up and lead our communities, even though some of us work in schools that cannot protect all of us adequately. Of course, it's not here. My colleagues and I, like nurses and doctors and first responders and sanitation workers, will do our part to help our communities get back on their feet again. I am certain we can do it. I mean, we had to retrofit an entire profession in a weekend, and it took the Gap 6 months to figure out how to sell and make masks. In my mind, our profession did an admirable job, despite the criticism. I was never so proud to be a teacher as I was this spring. I will do my best this year to represent my colleagues around the state with grace, strength, humility, and humor, and I will make mistakes. I will need guidance from my family, the previous New York State Teachers of the Year, and my colleagues to do this work well. Together, we will write the story, teaching in the time of COVID. Included in our story might be the answer to these questions. But when the school year is over, what might we want to carry forward to school years ahead? What will we have learned about instruction that helps students to propel their learning forward no matter what the educational environment? Will we discover that there are teacher moves and administrative decisions that we have continued to practice because we've always been doing it and not necessarily because it works in the new world order? What practices did we use this year that will continue to strengthen ties between families and schools? Our decisions and our actions in this moment will be a part of our students' story. It will be part of our story. A story that is compelling, a story that is bold, a story that connects us. But unlike other stories, there will be no surprise ending here because in the face of a crisis, teachers are always the reliable protagonists who our kids and families count on to get the job done. I cannot tell you how grateful and honored I am to be the 2021 Teacher of the Year. Thank you for this recognition. I look forward to championing the profession I love so much.
Our meeting and to sort of tie up and wrap up what I think is just very positive news about our reopening. Again, so proud of the task force that worked so hard since its inception in June, early June, and it has really been very encouraging and rewarding to actually see our hard work now in action. That's not to say there are not blips along the way. There are, and there will continue to be. There's nothing normal, sort of as Jen said, absolutely nothing normal about the way that we're doing school this year, at least at this time. So we again ask everyone's patience, bearing with us, knowing that we're learning this together. But with that being said, very, very proud of everyone who stepped up and just looking forward to a great year. And Mrs. Mulhern, that ends my part on reopening the school.
Thank you, Dr. Harrington. Mr. Coakley, construction report.
Construction report is as submitted, President McGrath-Mulhern, and if I can, I just wanted to thank Bobby Schlo, Director of Facilities, and the entire B&G crew. They've jumped over many obstacles to prepare all of our buildings and offices for school reopening. In my opinion, they've gone above and beyond, and I just wanted to officially recognize them and thank them.
Mr. Coakley, there was a question that was raised about the HVACs. Can you just talk about that system and how we're prepared to maintain it, given that it's going to be working overtime?
So with adhering to many of the recommendations that have come out regarding HVAC systems, we had to do a self-analysis of where our HVAC systems are. With that being said, what we've done is kind of shifted the programming of that to a 24-hour mode, which continues the ventilation and filtration of our air. Just as the recommendations have been coming in, we're doing that to proactively meet and continue adhering to all the compliance metrics regarding proper ventilation in our classrooms, in our hallways, in our schools, in our offices. That will go on as long as the recommendation remains in place. We will continue to follow that and make adjustments as soon as the state gives us guidance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coakley. Okay, goals 2020, 2021. Dr. Harrington,
yes.
Mrs. Provito.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Mulhern. I'd like to initially turn the floor over to Mrs. Provito, and then I will conclude that part.
Thank you, Dr. Harrington. Thank you to the Board of Education for the opportunity to share with the community our 2020-2021 goals. As many of you know, each year we participate in a goal-setting process that is rooted in our core beliefs. These beliefs embody our commitment to excellence, our commitment towards developing the talents and abilities of our students and preparing them for successful lives, for the opportunity to be contributing, responsible citizens. And our goals document is often quite lengthy. It's numerous pages and numerous goals across the 8 core beliefs that we hold. The current events that Jen spoke so beautifully about facing our nation and our community compelled an adjustment to what we traditionally do. Specifically, this year, we have made a commitment to 2 goals. The COVID-19 pandemic requires an entirely new look at how we educate and keep our students, staff, families, and community safe. To that end, our first goal is to meet the New York State Education Department's expectations for recovery, rebuilding, and renewing our schools. By following the plan that hundreds of stakeholders took part in, parents, teachers, staff, administration, community members, across these summer months, we established this plan that we are going to follow, and we will keep students, staff, and community safe and healthy, to maintain continuity of instruction that advances our curriculum and standards and promotes our student growth, to ensure access and equity for all our students, to meet the unique needs of all our learners, and to continue to plan ongoing communication with all our stakeholders about our opening plans and the events taking place across the year. So that's our first goal. Our second goal for the year is to examine and develop curriculum, instructional resources, practices, and climates that foster attitudes and actions of anti-racism and anti-bias. We are committed towards promoting cultural inclusivity and responsiveness by building awareness and respect of the diverse cultures and linguistics that exists among our students, among our community, and in the world. We also are committed to including restorative practices that will strengthen our society and prevent and reduce negative behaviors. All this promoting our students' achievement, their equity and inclusion. So that has been the focus of our year. Those are the 2 goals that we developed, quite lofty goals and important goals. As always, we do have some initiatives that we begin that we monitor throughout the year. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Harris.
So the 2 that I would like to point out that we're extremely excited about have to do with our facilities. One has to do with the engagement and looking for the creation of an energy performance contract. We are at the very early stages of that right now, where we have companies actually putting in bids for something called an RFP. That will go to our board building committee, and much more to come on that, but we have made a legitimate commitment to looking at ways that we can save money and save energy at the same time. I'm very excited about that initiative. And probably the one I'm most excited about, thanks to the support of the community, we did get the capital reserve passed last June, not May, but June. And as a result of that, we were able to start stage 1 of our renovation of our science labs at our high school. So we're well on track with that. Our district architect has met with Mr. Coakley, myself, Matt Christensen, our science supervisor, the science teachers, and we have a proposal just about ready to go up to the state. That is a long process. It takes weeks and weeks and weeks for them to ultimately give their final approval. We need their approval before we can then go out to bid and actually begin to hire people to do the work, which will start June of 2021. Very excited about that as well. Mrs. Mulhern, that concludes our report on the goals for 2021. We'll entertain any questions the board has.
Okay, any questions from the board? Okay, there being none, superintendent's report?
Yeah, in terms of enrollment is as submitted. The one thing I do want to point out is we do have 647 of our students actually by choice, by parent choice, attending what we're calling, at least at the elementary level, our virtual school of excellence. There are 349 children across our district. In that, we have 108 middle school students who chose full-time remote, and 188 high school students. So it's a total of 647, which is just under about 12% of our total population.
Thank you. Now, we have an opportunity for members of the community to speak on items for action only. That would be items A through F. Anybody in the community have any questions regarding the items for action? Okay. It should be right there on that table. Okay, A, approval, I need a motion for A, approval to award 2020.
I'll move it. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carried. Motion B, approval to declare furniture surplus.
Move it. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Carries. C, special education placement
I move
recommendation.
it. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. D, approval of professional.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Approval of civil service.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. F, approval of hourly employee recommendations.
Move it. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Opportunity for the superintendent.
Sorry, just two things to add, Mrs. Mullen. There was a question raised regarding the status of our purchase of our new marching band uniforms. That is in process, and hopefully we'll have a Memorial Day parade, and they'll be able to wear them for that wonderful parade. The second thing I would like to mention is that the community is aware that we have an organization, very fortunately in our community, called Oceanside Safe Coalition. They have a program scheduled called Coping with Stress and Anxiety the Healthy Way. It is going to be a Zoom meeting on Thursday, October 1st, and we will have this flyer on our website and for people to get more information. Thursday, October 1st, 7 p.m., Coping with Stress and Anxiety the Healthy Way. That concludes my report as well.
Okay, opportunity for the Board of Education. I'd just like to make an announcement that the board has agreed to draft a letter to send to the governor to allow sports to be played. The letter will be on the website once it is sent. As everybody knows, just to reiterate, the board called a special meeting and has already sent a letter to Section 8 to that same vein. Any other members of the board have anything? Sandy, Mrs. Schultz?
Yeah, I just need a clarification, Dr. Harrington. Could you repeat those virtual numbers again for me, elementary, middle school, high school?
It's a total of 647. I'm a little posted, I'm sorry. 349 elementary, 188 high school, 108 middle school.
What was the high school again?
188.
For a total of 647?
Yes. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. It's hard to hear.
Okay, any other board members? Opportunity, Mr. Glau?
Dr. Harrington, I just want to, this is our second in-person meeting since the whole pandemic started, and I just wanted to say that I think it's great that we're able to come back here in person and do this again, and even with the restrictions of the number of people that can attend, to be able to have the video in addition to it, I think is great. It allows people to still come here and us to be in person and be interactive, but also allows people who can't be here to.
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Blau. I do know that there was some question about the sound, and we realize what we need to do to fix it, to make it better, and we will make sure that's in place for next meeting.
Any other board members? Okay. Opportunity for members of the community to speak on non-agenda items. Mrs. Lazaro, please stand, state your name and your question.
Hi, I'm Jessica Lazaro. This is the first time I've ever speaking in front of the board, so only the second time I've ever come to a board meeting. I just first want to say that we are very grateful, and listening to Jennifer speak, it makes you feel so proud to be part of this community. We did feel that pride a few weeks ago when the decision was made to vote no for sports, and it seems to not be a vote that the board was in support of. So it's a little confusing to the community how that decision was made without the board knowing that that vote was taking place. So I don't know if somebody can answer that or address that.
That was a Section 8 decision, and boards do not have a say in Section 8 decisions, if that was what you're asking.
No, I know the board doesn't have a decision in that, but the superintendents do. And our superintendent was one of the few that voted, and there are many districts that had no
Well,
idea.
that's
that
separate and apart.
superintendents were voting.
But that's, as you know, that is separate and apart from our district itself. Okay, so yeah, we can't, so if you want to attend a Section 8 board meeting and then find that out, that information out, that would be great. But as far as this is our board meeting, and our board didn't have a say in that, nor does our superintendent have to ask us, being on the board at Section 8. So if that's what you're asking.
That was my question.
Yes.
I can clarify that a little bit.
Yeah, clarify, please.
Just
I don't
clarify
want to
this.
get into Section 8 because
I
that's not
understand.
our board.
Well, I just want to clarify just a couple of points.
Right.
Section 8, there are multiple sections in the New York State Public High School Athletic Association, as I think you all know. Each one is governed by their own constitution. Section 8 has 3 separate sort of governing pieces of the total Section 8. One is the superintendent's board, one is the executive committee, and one is the athletic council. So you're correct that the superintendent's board did meet the day after the governor's announcement. I will tell you that we have heard from others that they felt that there wasn't more conversation with more people. We heard that loud and clearly on Tuesday. On Wednesday morning, we went back and we said, we hear that, and we are willing to hold our decision about postponing sports, and that's a really big distinction I just want to get to using your words, if I may. But by Wednesday of that very next day, we agreed to hold off any final decision about fall sports until we did what other sections did, such as Section 11, wait for the opening of school, give it some time, wait for more information relative to that, wait to see what other sections across the state were going to do, and most importantly, get the people involved that you just described, because you were absolutely correct that that really should have been the way that went down. And we, as the superintendent's board, we didn't do anything illegal. We followed our constitution, but recognizing ultimately how this was translated and then transpired, we recognized we needed to reconvene, and we did the very next day. The one point, and that final decision with the entire athletic council is still yet to be made. I can assure you it's on its way to being made, and I can assure you that our intent is not to have vote no for sports. That was never the intent from the very beginning. The intent was always about the health and safety of all of our children and our staffs, to be honest with you. But it was also, with an intent to say, how can we guarantee, and guarantee is always in quotes in this current situation we're in, right? What can we do to increase the likelihood that all of our children who want to play not just one sport, but multiple sports, have the best opportunity to do that? Part of the problem with a decision like that is we don't know, right? We really don't know what it's going to be. That was really where the intent of our initial decision was. But now I can assure you that that feeling hasn't changed on our part. It's not about saying no to sports, it's actually quite the contrary. But we will be using that mindset along with the data we've collected over the last couple of weeks even, and the input of the athletic council, which is made up of superintendents and ADs across the county, to have a final decision within a handful of days. I am optimistic that there will be a proposal that I hope that people will recognize as fair, equitable, safe for all children, and by no means is a vote of no for sports, quite the opposite. That's my intent and that's my commitment as I sit not only on Oceanside's board, but also when I do sit on that board. As Mrs. Mulhern said, I don't represent, I'm not permitted to represent Oceanside schools. I'm there to represent, in my case, large school districts. That's how the seat I hold, if you will. And that's where we are right now with that. Thank you.
I just have to legally clarify, when you were saying "we," you're discussing your position as a Section 8 board member,
Yeah.
not as the superintendent.
Oh,
of
correct,
Oceans.
absolutely.
Okay, but our board has spoken as to what our position and our intent and our feelings are, which are separate and apart from what Dr. Harrington just said using the word "we." So that's what I was trying to explain to you, that there is a difference, and we have to
So
keep that
I
difference.
think that that's what maybe the community didn't understand, was that when you were part of that vote, it was part of the Section 8 superintendent's vote, not part of the OSHA.
That is correct.
Exactly.
And I fully appreciate why there was a misunderstanding. It's understandable why there was a misunderstanding, and I do apologize for that. Again, timing worked against us in that regard, and unfortunately the media also didn't help, no surprise, because they published things about Section 11, for example, that was not accurate. They said Section 11 voted to have sports, and we didn't. That was completely not accurate. So, so it was a misstep, but the most important thing is we want to stay together, we want to stay positive, we want to stay healthy, right, number one. But we're going to make this happen for our kids. That's my commitment, not for just my kids here, but for the kids in Nassau County that I represent on that board.
Mrs. Lazaro, follow-up question.
Okay, so I've heard from multiple different sources about task force, and I had the opportunity to speak to Mrs. Pervito over the summer and learn a little bit about the craziness that comes from the governor. And so I understand a lot of task force were put together for school to be able to reopen. Why wasn't a task force put together for schools? Why did it wait until the end of August for the athletic directors and coaches to even be asked to be part of the decision and part of how can we return this, in the healthiest and safest way possible?
So that's a great question. And I think sports, remember, it's not just sports. It's
Right.
marching band, it's honor society, absolutely. So there was a part of the state requirement that we needed to fill out in order to do our plan that spoke to those kinds of things. It was very generic and it was very open-ended. And basically, it allowed us to pretty much say, we will follow the guidelines of the CDC and the DOH, and quite honestly, we'll follow and suit with all of the other things that we put in place for our district, for regular reopening. It was the second, the goal, the primary goal was getting schools open for academics. That's right, that's the biggest chunk of what we have to do. But we recognize fully that those extracurricular activities are hugely important to our kids for many, many, many reasons. I can tell you honestly that we were taken by surprise when the governor made that announcement on that Monday. Everything he had indicated up to that point, including what he demanded of us in the reopening plan to do. I mean, there was some degree of it was incredulous to think that they could ask us to do everything we had to do, everything that cost us a whole lot of money. But we did it, and we did it happily because it was because of health and safety. And then for him to turn around and say what he did. We were not prepared for that announcement. That's the God's honest truth. We just weren't.
So the assumption was that he was going to say there's no sports that can be played.
I think it's safe to say that the assumption was that getting schools open safely was going to be a priority, and those things would come over time. I can speak for myself and my colleagues who I've been in touch with, but we were taken by surprise. We really, really were. And if you think about everything that happened prior to that, remember, think about this, Mrs. Lazaro. He didn't tell us until, what was the date, July or something, whether we could even open schools in September. So if you put that in perspective, it was
August 7th.
What it was?
August 7th.
Oh, thank you. August 7th was when we got the state, plan we had to follow. So if you, just for 1 second, and I know you're trying hard to do that, and I appreciate it. If you think about that logic, August 7th was when we got the final green light to, say, okay, you can open schools in 3 weeks. Literally, that's what the So to think, in addition to that, and now school is starting, in some cases, for most districts like ours, full-time, September 14th. And then to think that he was going to say, and then it's okay a week after that to have sports, and we don't know. At that point, he had all of the sports, including football. You see how long that lasted. So we were taken by surprise. We really, really were. Maybe shame on us, I don't know, but it really just was not our priority, just like thinking whether we were going to do concerts was necessarily our priority. It is now. Thank God we've got schools open, our kids are settling in, our teachers are settling in, and of course, now we're going to get to what about all these other things that make school so very special and make it the main reason why a lot of our kids come to school. Let's be honest, right? That's true. We'll have the time to do that. And I'm confident that the plan, going back to athletics at Section 8, I believe will collaboratively come to, will be one that parents will be pleased and at least hopefully understand that we heard, we listened, we're trying, and we're trying to mostly be fair and equitable with keeping health and safety as a priority. I promise you.
And working with around the governor's guidelines as they come out daily. So, and the minute that we were given the green light, I do have to tell you that this district went into action. They really did. I know I'm not at liberty to say everything, but they did.
I'm not saying that you guys are not working your butts off. I'm not trying to come.
No, I meant
that's not my message.
But I meant with athletics. The minute we got that message, we went full force ahead, and then the governor continually changed, and then New York State Public High School Athletic Association continually changed, and so it really is such a fluid situation, but I promise you, I'm making this just, as the whole board is behind these kids. We're behind these kids, we're behind athletics, we're behind extracurricular activities. We really are. That's what makes our school district so great, is that we have everything for everybody, whatever you're interested in. We just have to work around what we're living in right now, but we are, and we're very positive pro kids. That is the message that I want to get out tonight. Mrs. McGee, you have
Mrs. Mulhern?
You raise your hand.
Mrs. Mulhern?
What?
I want to go back to...
Excuse me, I'm sorry, 1 second.
Mrs. Lazzaro's question about a task force for athletics. Dr. Harrington, would not it be the task force for athletics be the New York State Athletic Association in conjunction with Section 8, because Section 8 is comprised of athletic directors, superintendents, gets coaches' input, so that would be a task force already existing, and so would the New York State Athletic Association. Is that not correct?
But the New York State Public High School Athletic Association, NISFA, did have a task force, right, on just reopening, and they actually were taken by surprise with the governor's action as well. They had a second proposal, which has merit, and that's still being debated. I think that's the proposal that subsection 11 is going with. Again, I don't want to speak prematurely for Section 8, but they did have a task force, so it wasn't like an individual district. But you're right, did we pay much attention to what we were going to do specifically? We didn't, but we would ultimately take these guidelines and then go back to our internal people and say, how are we going to do this and make it work?
I appreciate you answering all the questions, because I think there's a lot of confusion in the community about it, and we don't necessarily, you just pointed out, I wouldn't have thought about it that way. But now, again, here comes Cuomo announcing yesterday that he's leaving it up to each individual school district. The parents and the school districts have the choice to make for themselves. So I get it. He's constantly changing everything.
Yeah, but you also have to remember that he had a choice on words where he turned around and left it up to the individual school districts. He's a smart man. He knows that it's got to go right through all the sections. So Oceanside could say, hey, we want to play football, we want to play soccer, but who are we going to play against? So he knew that it became a sectional thing, but he wanted to use his words very, very specific to say, we're going to leave it up to each individual school district.
And he's still accepting certain sports. Like this is not an open-ended.
So that was fair to push this on individual, and I'm not talking Oceanside, on all these school districts without any type of government power, and he knew he had to go to the government power. And that's the problem that every school district had, that it really wasn't our choice or our decision. And that's the important thing to say here.
I think what I want to clarify, though, is the misconception that athletic directors and coaches were not talking all summer and making plans. They were, from the state down. They were making plans in case the governor changed it. All of our athletic director was part of those committee meetings as well. There were committee meetings, and they were all talking all summer about how they would handle it if he wouldn't give the green light for athletics. So they were working from
Yeah,
the
but the
state
question
down.
specifically is, well, you really couldn't, and this is the reason why, because we could not have come up with anything that just Oceanside School District was going to live by. Oceanside School District is part of Section 8, so we had to wait for Section 8 to make their decisions before our internal people could do anything, and then they're going to follow Section 8 rules. They pretty much have to.
So you're saying that you didn't...
Wait, you can't, I'm sorry. I know this sounds like just a family conversation, so we got to keep order, and we're on video, so we got to. So raise your hand, stand up, and say your name and ask the question.
So my question is, now that you're saying that you were dealing with the directors from the New York State level.
I wasn't, no.
I'm saying that's who originally was making a decision, the task force, or...
I would say making decisions and/or giving input, yes.
Are you now going to create something within our district where our athletic director is now going to approach our coaches and start to get input from them so that you do have something? Because I mean, obviously, hindsight.
Yes, I can
you
assure you that again, our athletic director has to take direction from Section 8. Section 8 is getting, with that decision is going to be made collaboratively with the athletic directors that serve on the athletic council, and then there's actually a high school athletic council that has all of the high school ADs. They're all going to be part of ultimately deciding what's in the best interest of the athletes in Nassau County. Then we're going to get that sort of mandate, and then
I think with the questions as a community, it's also difficult to follow like who works for who. Like, so you're saying that the athletic director doesn't actually, like I would throw the answer to you.
It does.
Okay, so are you going to be asking him to provide?
Yes, those conversations are currently, since we knew we sort of had to figure out and this was evolving, yes, those conversations have absolutely happened and are going to continue to happen and ultimately have, yes, input from everybody that's here. As a matter of fact, I'm working on something right now with our coaches in terms of the what ifs. If this happens, if that happens, how are we going to reach out to our athletes now if sports don't officially start? We're working on those kinds of plans. So the answer to your question basically is absolutely. I could not go to them or vice versa until we had some parameters, because otherwise we're just shooting at the hip and hoping for the best. Now that we will have parameters, we will be able to work within them. Our independent coaches couldn't say, I want to play, so can you please push the envelope and make sure we get to play?
No, I'm not saying play.
Yeah.
I'm saying like if you guys were tasked with coming up with new plans, wouldn't it be, maybe looking ahead to have said to them what plans if there's potentially no contact, if there is contact.
And we have something like that we're actually in the process of working out right now.
It's late.
No, it isn't late at all. It isn't late at all. We'll have it.
Not allowed to do it right now, so it's not.
But you also got to remember that the governor made all the school districts come up with a plan on July 31st, and then they had to be approved to come back to us. And it's almost the same situation with Section 8 with all the athletic directors. So the athletic directors are putting together plans between Section 8, then come back to our coaches and say, okay, here's how we're going to be working this. So it's the same exact thing where the governor worked it, the same way Section 8's working it. It's got to come right down to us, the users. And some of the places that Governor Cuomo didn't accept the school plan to open up, and some of them he did, and then some of them were modified. And we have to be one of the school districts that they accepted our opening with. And that's why we're right now not going with successful. I mean, we see, you guys see News 12 where, Oyster Bay and Plain Edge and all these different schools that are, through no fault of theirs, that are getting hit with some viruses, and they're shut down for a day, 2 days, 3 days. Go in, clean the building, and start all over again. I mean, it's not a fits all, and we're trying hard. All of us are trying hard on this board. But, you know, the directions that you get, I mean, it's almost sometimes that we're finding out stuff on the news. Because, and that's the way the information's coming in. But, you know, it's got to come through the channels that it comes through. We just can't turn around and say, okay, coaches, come up with a plan and put these kids on the field. You have 56 school districts doing, you know, 56 different items. So someone's got to get the direction.
But everybody in the state is already doing that. I mean, you have every region.
Everybody's just putting out plans, but nothing's approved, nothing's done yet.
Okay, Mrs. McGee, do you have a question?
I am going to take. I'm going to ask this as a health professional. Is there a health professional on these boards that make these decisions of whatnot when the school closes, when the school opens? Because the fact that schools are closing for a day because one person comes back positive is absurd. Can you put that in writing?
Can you put that in writing right now? Yeah, write that down, Mrs. McKee. So, that's a great
Can you call the governor tomorrow?
No, it's not the governor, she's absolutely correct. No, it's not. So,
We don't close schools for flu. We don't close schools for other coronaviruses. So those people, and I know that it's not up to you to say that.
no, but it's a really great point, and I really thank you for saying it, and I kind of was joking that I'm going to ask you to put it in writing, but I may come to you. So here's what I think is happening, because our plan, our testing and contract tracing protocol plan by law is on the website. It mirrors what almost every other district says because we got that directly from NASA and Suffolk DOH. You are 1,000% correct, and they pretty much said one case does not mean a school closes. As we all now already saw, as Mike pointed out, in the first couple of weeks of school districts are doing exactly opposite what it sort of says there. But I'll tell you why. Because people are panicking. And they hear, oh my God, there's a confirmed case. And then you hear the contact, then you hear the contact of the contact. And it becomes, honestly, just a peak. You are so correct. You're correct.
I could be giving it to you right now.
100%. 100%. But the sense I get right now is that it's more a PR ploy, honestly, than a health. It has nothing to do, just like you said, zero to do with the reality of what it means health-wise. In a couple of situations, the schools, the DOH was not able to do the contact tracing in a reasonable time frame, so the schools closed a day just to give them the chance to do the contract tracing. I said just this morning in a meeting I was with the superintendent, I said, that's all well and good. If we're going to say that, then let's say it, so we all do that. But we're saying now DOH is going to take a day. In a matter of a couple of weeks, they're going to take.
Make the decision of closing school.
It's a
school, or do you have to consult? Like if you had a teacher that came back positive.
I am obligated to consult with the DOH, and I'm happy to consult with the DOH. The DOH would likely tell me, after I say to them everything we've done in our school to protect our kids, the likelihood of any, transference is minimal, if non-existent. They would tell me, my best recommendation is you don't need to close. However, again, if these other schools are starting to do it that way, I can assure you it will be a nightmare for us if we don't at least entertain that unless we have 100%, we did the contract tracing, we know we've already contacted the people who need to quarantine, these schools are okay, these classes are okay. They've done it more for that reason, not for the health reason. I will be happy to consult with DOH. I understand that the doctor that they've assigned to school districts, because I have a direct line to them, a phone number. She's been amazing apparently. But over time, it's going to take more time for them to do the contract tracing because they're going to have more cases. So one day is going to go to 2 days, go to 3 days, and it's going to disrupt instruction and the flow of things, I think, unnecessarily. But I'm not a health professional either, and it's a very disconcerting position. So I really may call you and say, Ms. Vicky, help me word this, because it is an issue.
Number two, if the sport itself is not being played, what are you doing? Like right now, they would be working out, if they weren't playing in
I will say to you, yeah, I will say to you that I've been working with a couple of coaches, Mr. Luisi, Mr. Reisner, on a potential plan that I was able to discuss with the board in exec session tonight to get their input so I can bring it back to them. So we're working on a plan so that athletes will be connected to, regardless of what ultimately Section 8 decides. Right. Well, a formal way that we can acknowledge our coaches, a formal way that we can compensate our coaches, and most importantly, you know, sort of guarantee that our athletes are being connected to, and it'll be a matter. I'll have to wait for Section 8. Once Section 8 does their thing, the board did give me permission to put a few closing points on that plan, which should happen within a week. Will happen within a week. It will. It will. That's my goal.
So is there? Sorry,
You haven't changed your name since in the way.
I know, I'm annoying, I answer that question. Is there?
But this is where you answer the questions. This is where you come to answer
This is
questions.
where you get
And
the
you'll get the
correct
answer.
and honest answer.
And
Right.
I'm
Not on
really-
Facebook, not on anything else, this is where you have to come.
I feel 1,000% better having been here and asking the questions and getting answers, and I think it will help the entire community, I hope.
I hope so.
Because it definitely has cleared up a lot of different things. My two other questions are, you know, we're sports, I'm sports in my life. So we're fighting to get sports back, but it doesn't matter if we get sports back if school ends up closing.
Correct.
So we were admittedly blindsided to the governor, which I'm sure will happen again, but what are we doing to, do we have, is there a magic number of, you know, oh, X number of cases and we have to do this? A percentage of positive cases and that's it, we're all going virtual.
Of course not, because that would be too easy and simple.
So
The
we're
truth is
still
there.
just flying with
No, I don't want to, we're kind of like, you know, bantering a little bit here, you know, in an informal way, and there's nothing, you know, this is serious stuff, we know that, right? So the truth is, we do have a very, very systematic process that we have to play. I just said to the board tonight, I said, literally every night I go home and this phone didn't ring, because DOH has my cell phone number, and I didn't get that call. I'm checking it off on the calendar and saying, today was a really good day. Seriously, that's how I'm approaching it. It's inevitable. What you have the entire community has my commitment, and that includes my employees as well. Keep in mind, we have 1,000 employees in this district that I'm responsible to protect as well. You have my commitment that a process will be followed, that the input of the professionals that I have to rely on, like the DOH, will be absolutely part of the conversation. Public relations and perception is just a part of it. I can't ignore that, but I won't let it be the thing that makes me make the final decisions. You know what I'm saying? Because I agree with you, which goes back to, and I don't want to really go back to it, but I will say, which was what you just said, the words you said, that if we don't have school, we won't have any sports. I promise you that those were the exact words, practically verbatim, that going back to that infamous time when the superintendents met, that was a key part of what we were saying. Oh my God, we have to protect all kids for the long haul, because ultimately, if we don't, then this is terrible for everybody. Those were beautiful words, exact words we used. This is not what I signed on for. But, as I said, starting my 40th year, I'm an educator. But this is I talk with superintendents every day. This is our new norm. This is our new life, you know, and it's not going away. And instead of going into classrooms and loving and watching teaching and learning, what GEN stands for, I'm going to be waiting and having these conversations and thinking about the what ifs and trying to plan in a positive, progressive, hopeful manner. I said to Jen, I'm so happy that she's the 21 Teacher of the Year, because to me that was like the first sign of hope. You know, yay, we'll begin the new year with her, and that's how my life is right now.
So one last question. The question is going to put a little bit of pressure on, well, my next question.
I know Mrs. Dixie's has a question.
Oh, okay. Do we have a reopening plan? So we have this is what we have to do if we shut down. Are we thinking that at some point the restrictions have to be lifted at some point? So are we thinking about this is how we're going to start reopening?
We would, as soon as we get different guidance. Right now, our reopening plan is based specifically on a 100-something page report that we got from the state that said, you must do this, and you must do that, and you must do this. Tell us how you're going to do it, but you must do all of these things. That, I'm assuming, and I pray every day, that we're going to get there. They pull away some of those restrictions. Well, no one will be happier than anybody in this room to be able to do that. But to act on it now. Yeah, that's good. That happens November 4th, that happens November 4th. That's the word on the street. Okay, I'll take it. But seriously, we to put a group together now to talk about pulling back some of those, it doesn't make sense because we have to wait for guidance. I will tell you, we started our school district and we took some flack for it in a very restrictive manner. For example, at the elementary level, we're socially distancing, and we're mandating face masks, and we put desk barriers for kids. All three. We only had to do one of the three. So I will tell you that if things get that much better, might we be able to pull some of that back? We might. A lot of it will depend on the data. A lot of it will depend on the comfort level. But we chose to start in a more restricted manner so that the vast majority of people could feel comfortable having their kids in school. That was our priority. If we can, we will. No promises, but we'll be monitoring that all the time because there's nothing natural about this, and nobody likes it. But it's just the real world right now. Thank you for your question.
Mrs. Ortiz has been very patient.
That was my question.
Oh.
Because my daughter did come home after 3 days of school and said, she's ready tomorrow because she wants to be in school every day. That was my question. Like, is there a plan?
You mean at the high school?
High school.
Yeah.
And, you know,
So that is a great problem to have. I have to tell you, it's a great.
I'm very happy that she wants to be in school.
That is a super, and you know, we're hearing that over, and we really are hearing that over and over. So I take that as such a compliment for everybody, not me personally, but for everybody. The problem is that in order to social distance, which is still really very much the thing that people are focusing on, we just can't fit it in our buildings. So if those requirements lighten up and we can manage to do that, we will. Because I will tell you the truth, teaching that way is not a whole lot of fun either. So,
terrible.
Yeah.
Good job.
So, you're right.
It was just, she came out of the school and how was your day? You know, just what the difference would be for.
Understood. You know, we did a lot of so the kids in the cafeteria at the high school. It's just not normal. It isn't. But the kids are adjusting, and we will be monitoring it. It's very early. We're a couple of weeks in, but you know, and hopefully that whole hybrid process, teaching remotely that way, will get more natural, not only for the kids but for the teachers. In fairness to them, it's really not easy. But we'll do the best we can, and if I don't know whether it's November 4th or just God is good, or, you know, God willing, as my mother will say all the time, God willing, we're out of this sooner rather than later, and we get allowed to have relaxed restrictions, we'll be all over.
Can I ask just one? So my daughter's pretty responsible with the computer and everything, and she has a problem with it. When she went to the lab, they said there's no longer.
That's accurate.
That's a problem, though.
We understand.
Okay.
The problem is that we had to distribute a device to every single one of our students. So we are completely a one-to-one district from kindergarten through 12th grade. We purchased a number of Chromebooks, and a batch have yet to come in, so our first graders don't officially have them yet. And we took back every single available working Chromebook that we had already in our district. We couldn't go out and buy hundreds and hundreds, but we did as many as we could. Right now, there are no loaners available. However, we have orders out for replacements because we recognize that that's a reality of what's going to happen. But we're also asking our students and our families to please try to be as responsible as they can, because your statement is 100% accurate.
When we call the insurance company, the insurance company, they, unfortunately, the response I got, it's probably not what you guys want to hear, but 8 hours a day on a computer, and then 4 or 5 hours of homework on a computer is why these computers are running out.
I would think that that is probably an accurate statement. I'm not a techie, so I can't say for sure, but it makes common sense to me. I don't think those many hours on a computer are good, period. You know, for the computer or for a person, the human being in front of the screen. It's a catch-22. We're trying to, you know, we had parents who were screaming at us that they want period by period, every minute, every second, every, you know, and then we had others who were more reasonable and understood that perhaps a mixture, which is why our remote, if we were to go out at our high school full remote, we actually have a brilliant plan that was spearheaded by Dr. Ziriadis and her team at the high school, so that kids would not have to be in the situation you just said. But for the hybrid model, there was no other way to do it.
I was just curious.
That's great.
It happened.
I know.
You know.
I know.
And it never happened once.
I know.
Of course.
I
And
know.
then we call for the insurance, and then, you know,
I know.
I worry if it's a personal computer and they go on, is it, you know.
No, they can use their personal, they can.
Yeah, but is it as fast, is it this, is, you know, like, it's like, is it gonna keep up? So that's why I'm asking.
All of those issues are real issues. We have come to, the phrase I keep using all the time is, of course, flexibility, but also we have to sustain, oh my God, it just went out of my head. Suspend, thank you. That's why I have a terrific assistant, she puts the words back in my mouth. We have to suspend everything we believe about teaching and learning, because it's just not going to happen the way we want it to be. So that, along with being flexible, is the only way we're going to get through this. And we're going to get through it with kindness and caring and remembering that we are all in this together. We may not always agree on everything, and things fall through the cracks and don't always get communicated as well as we would like, but it's not intentional. The intent here is to do what's right for all of our children and our faculty and staff here in Oceanside. And I know you guys know that. I know that. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Dr. Harrington, just one, Mrs. Mulhern. My concern, and I don't know if we can get clarification on it, my concern is that when the governor first made the decision to open schools, he came out with percentages. He came out with the 9% no-go and 5 to go, 9% you close. Then, when the colleges opened up first, he had the edict of 100 students, and then you got to go to remote. If you have 100 COVID cases, you have to go to remote, was his edict then. Then, now today, he's stuck on the 1%. So all of a sudden, you don't hear him talk about 5% or 9%. Today, he's stuck on, he wants to stay at 1% or under.
Yeah,
I'm afraid of that. I'm very frightened of that, because that may influence the DOH, and that may cause problems because of what we just discussed before. One kid here, one kid there, trying to impose us closing and going to remote is what my concern is. We really don't have clarity from him on that, what that 1% means, and what that means for us, and what the numbers are. There's a lot of ambiguity here, and I'm very concerned about that. And I'm concerned that may be how that's going to be interpreted by DOH when they're giving us guidance with regard to staying open or closed. If we could get more clarification, if state ed could help us with that, that would really be wonderful.
I will do what I can. I will tell you that, where I wear a hat on the State Council of School Superintendents, and the governor has not been open to hearing much from public school educators. That's all I can say.
And thus the point of our letter.
Just one second. Mr. Pittman?
That's great. That's all I want to know. I wanted to congratulate Ms. Wolf on her hard-earned achievement and our well-deserved recognition again. Ms. Wolf is an exemplar of the excellence in teaching and of this district, so congratulations again. With respect to the reopening of schools, I know there were a wide range of anxieties and opinions on reopening schools, but I know being on the task force, I'm confident that I know that the collaborative efforts of all the groups really ensured that this was the safest possible opening for the students and staff. And I want to thank everybody, especially the custodian, that actually had to make this happen. Like, had the classroom clean. I've been here a little later than I was supposed to be in the afternoons. It was supposed to clear out. But, I was in the back office and I saw them going through the room and like edge to edge and wiping everything down. So they're really doing a great job of keeping everyone safe. So I really want to thank them and everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pittman. Thank the OFT for all their help in getting us going. It's been really great. Thank you.
I'm so happy to be back in school.
I know you are. Thank you. Just.
I just had one question. If the restrictions were to be lifted, like we're trying to be a little bit positive and trying to be able to give our kids some positivity, because it's extremely hard. If everything was to be lifted, is school have a plan to be able to go back to the old normal, or is this it for this year?
Certainly,
if it magically
disappears, we get rid of every single of one of those desk barriers, and I built Dr. DeRosa's igloo, which I told her I was going to do with all of those clear desk barriers. Yeah, absolutely. Nothing about what we're doing.
I'm saying these are permanent.
It's only permanent as long as the law is telling us it has to be. That we are following.
You guys are prepared to let students back?
Tomorrow, if I got a call right now and said, you know what, this was just a bad joke, what's happening in the last number, you can go back tomorrow. I promise you. And it would not be difficult. It really wouldn't. It would be simple to be, it probably be the simplest thing we'd ever have to do. Thank you. Well, we'll count on that. No, absolutely, positively. But understand right now, everything we're doing is governed by law. I mean, they gave us very little wiggle room to make certain, like I said, we chose the 3 protective measures. Some districts didn't go that route, that was there was some wiggle room within the mandates, but the mandate document was this thick, and we had to follow every single one and show how we followed every single one. So, absolutely, on a dime, we can change.
The task force, how do you get on that task force?
If you go to our website, you can actually see we have multiple constituents. Parents were chosen through the PTA Council. I didn't cherry pick parents by any stretch of the imagination. Each unit head, so for example, OFT union leadership chose their members, and that's how basically it went through every single unit. But if you want to know exactly who was on it by name, it is on our website.
I think we've seen the package with all the names on it. We were just curious how it gets on.
I asked, well, the task force is basically
Anybody wants to run it.
not really. I mean, it wasn't intended to be exclusive in any way, but we definitely, we had the task force, which were the main people, and those were chosen by the leaders in different constituents, and then we did have focus groups, and those were much, much larger, and I believe the focus groups were open to whoever wanted to be a part of that, but we did leave it, it was always on our website. And we left it up to the different, we left it.
Don't forget, you go back to June, May.
The work started June 1st.
Right, so we go back like.
But we did leave it up to the individual, individual unions.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry. Yeah, oh, many. And actually, Dr. DeRosa, unfortunately, has a cold. She won the prize, because we actually had a bet who's going to get the first real cold. It was Dr. DeRosa, which is why she isn't here. Great question was whether we had we had Dr. Schoenfeld, who was our medical physician, our nurses who have been amazing. We had, and we also had a health and safety representative who works with us 1 day a week. She was on it. We had multiple medical professionals, but Dr. Schoenfeld was the main person in that seat. Great question.
Sorry. Well, it was a question I had before, but then Sandy kind of answered it about, because Governor Cuomo gave a very nice press conference off of the ferry this morning and spoke about the number needs to be below 1%. So one of my questions was, in that 140-page guideline that you guys got back in June, was it 5 to 9%?
No,
So I'm sure he's changing the numbers.
And let me be clear, the guidance, the document that I'm referring to came from the State Education Department, not from the governor's office.
Okay.
The governor's directives are one thing, and he directs the State Ed Department. Then the State Ed Department said, okay, you've got to do da 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 da. And that's the document, and those are the guidelines we worked off of. But of course, they worked off of his guide. Now, I have to be honest with you, I was here all day. I didn't even hear about him making an announcement about one. I heard that he said you could trick or treat. That I read somewhere. I don't know where I read that.
Well, so my question is, because his guidelines keep changing, is there anybody in the state that's challenging?
No.
If he's not listening, you said he's not listening to public education. Is there anybody in the state of New York that can put him to the task and say, these are completely ridiculous?
The President of the United States.
No. I think it's a great.
Science doesn't support
Jen, the legislators they stand behind him, they're not fighting him. It's one-party rule. Unfortunately, that's the way it works.
Yeah, but I also.
And he's also declared a state of emergency. So by law, he has the power. State of emergency, if you read that, gives him all the power. And I believe as long as that state of emergency is in existence, he's in total control.
But I also feel, I feel like just wanted to make one statement. I would be remiss if I didn't. I think it's also fair to say that New York State is in a very different place than a lot of other states in our country. So whether we like his style, whether we agree with all the approaches, my son is a Broadway musician. My son's been out of work since March, and he's not very hopeful of when he's going to come back. So do I think perhaps that some of the restrictions in New York City are a little bit extreme? Probably, but that's because I'm reacting personally, right? But I just want to say publicly, and this is not a political statement, but I do feel that we have to accept the fact that we are in a better place, and we are in school, and we are doing certain things because of some of the very clear directives he gave. And that's just the reality. No one can argue with that.
Well, I could, but I won't.
Okay, don't.
Read your Facebook later on.
No, I don't do Facebook, and I'm just joking.
Well,
Any more questions? Otherwise, I need a motion to
Make a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, everybody, for attending. Thank you.
We will have sports. I heard you say that.
Let's keep the school open.
And there you go.